Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Next time you ask yourself if you're the a-hole, just remind yourself of today's villains. Today in the rLounge, the canvas of life is painted with the brushstrokes of familial conflict. Up first, art is in the eye of the beholder. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share a single piece of my mom's art? My parents got married straight out of high school, had me, 25 female, right away and then split up when I was 3. But they stayed close friends till the day my mother died. My dad remarried Anna when I was 7. She had a daughter, Eve, 22 female. Then they had our brother Jake, 16 male, together. Jake was really sick when he was a toddler, so our parents spent a lot of time at the hospital with him, and I spent a lot of time at my mom's house. Eve's dad worked weird hours, so my mom was more than happy to take Eve too most of the time. She loved hanging out with kids. My mom was a talented and passionate artist, and she was determined to foster a love of art in us. And she did for both of us, but Eve is far more talented than I am, and her and my mom bonded over that shared love of painting. My mom passed away suddenly this January. I was always extremely close with her, and I was and still am completely devastated. I still can't accept that she's gone forever. I miss her so much. In late April, I finally got up the spirit to start organizing her things. Eve approached me after I mentioned that I was going to my mother's home to sort through some stuff, and she asked me if she could look through my mom's paintings and have a few as keepsakes because my mother was such an inspiration for her. I don't want to, and I refused. Not the paintings. I'm willing to give her clothes, jewelry, furniture, almost anything, but the paintings and journals are closest things I have left to my mom. There's pieces of her soul in there. It's not just stuff. They're the most personal items she left, and I don't want to let a single one go. Eve got really upset and said she didn't care about any of the other things either, and she didn't think she was asking for that much. She said my mother was an important person in her life and that they had a strong relationship. Eve believes that my mother would have left her something if she had the opportunity to decide. I still said no, and Eve went to her mom to complain, and now my immediate family is torn on the issue and arguing when we see each other. My dad understands, but thinks I can give up 1 or 2, and that I might change my mind in a couple years once the paint isn't so fresh, and I do think that could have happened before, but Eve and Anna are pushing me so hard on it and being passive-aggressive towards me, and I feel completely different about them now. We all used to be close. I understand she wasn't a stranger to my mom, but that's just not enough to me. I think my own grief is bigger, and to ask me for such a personal thing so soon after her death was insensitive. And I'm even more upset that they don't even see the irony of Eve sending her own living mother after me for my dead mom's stuff. My boyfriend wants me to just give her one and repair my family, so I stop tormenting myself, but I think I want to stand my ground here. So am I the a-hole? Edit. I just want to say this here because I read a lot of comments about it, but this isn't just about jealousy of Eve. I can admit I was a little jealous when I was younger because I had ideas that I couldn't properly get out, and it seemed unfair that they could, but when I got to high school and discovered that medium that worked for me, film, the frustration I felt at not to be able to express my creative thoughts properly melted away, and the jealousy went with it. This is fully about what my mother's paintings mean to me. Alright, let's get some verdicts from the community. First up, not an a-hole. I don't think this is about the paintings as much as this is about your grieving. Ask for time to grieve and process. Use that time to figure out what your mom would have wanted to do. Ask yourself if it's fair to hold on to all of the pieces of your mom, or whether she'd want you to share with those she was closest to. The next comment says, not the a-hole. I ended up giving away a lot of my dad's things to my brother and his friends out of guilt after he passed away, and I regret it regularly. Though, if you're open to it, ask Eve if she would be open to prints of the paintings you could make for her. Maybe also communicate with her, as you said in this post, that the wound is still fresh and you'll reconsider when time has passed. The OP replies, prints are a really good idea that I hadn't considered. I don't know the first thing about it, but I'll start looking into how possible it would be for me. Honestly, it's a little insensitive of Eve to even ask. You're not in the wrong here. It's beautifully tragic to think that a little piece of your mom's soul is in her artwork. I'm so sorry for your loss. You don't have to do anything you're not ready to do, and you certainly don't have to give Eve anything. Yeah, she may think that if your mom was to leave her one thing, it would be the art. But fun fact about that is that she wasn't actually her daughter, so she shouldn't feel entitled in any way to anything of your mother's. Update. It's been a while, but I was thinking about my last post and thought I'd make an update. It's kind of a mess, and I can't make it flow like a story, so I'm going to do bullet points. The new year marked the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death. I've been feeling more stable the last few months, but now I feel like I'm right back where I started. I started seeing a counselor this summer, but I don't know if she helps that much. Anna and Eve went quiet about it, but things still felt tense, so I wasn't seeing much of my dad or brother, and I felt like I was ready to try to fix things. Eve's birthday was in September. I thought the suggestions from my first post were really good, so I went through my mother's paintings and journals and had a coffee table type book made with 20 prints I thought she'd appreciate most, and their corresponding entries. And it was so effing hard. I wasn't ready to go so in depth, but I thought it would be worth it. Eve seemed receptive but underwhelmed. I don't know what words I want, but she said thank you and was looking through it, and then after a few minutes, Anna said, "All that time for some prints?" And then Eve said, "It's not the same." I didn't want to fight, but I didn't want to cry either, so I just left right then. I wanted to rip it out of her hands, but I didn't. My dad called me and apologized, but I told him I didn't want to go back home and see Anna or Eve for a while. The biggest thing that changed is that Anna's mom passed just after Thanksgiving. She was sick for years, so it was sad but not shocking, but I think Anna's whole perspective shifted. She sincerely apologized to me for a few days after the funeral, and I don't think my trust in her is restored yet, but it's a big step, and I told her that I forgave her, so things are better between us. Eve and I have barely spoken since her birthday, and she ignored me before the funeral when I told her I was sorry she lost her grandma. I don't know what to do. I don't want things ruined forever, but I want an apology, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get one. I don't want to put work in if she's going to ignore me. She got an apartment with friends, and she's moving in soon, so I'll be able to visit without awkwardness now, but I'm not happy how things still are. My lease ended 9/30, and I thought maybe I'd move into my mom's house, but I couldn't do it. I've been at an Airbnb and telling myself that I had to move in after the 1 year because I'm spending way too much on this place, and if I sign another lease, I'm just letting it sit there for another year. I'm paid through at the Airbnb another week, but then I'm going to have to leave. I talked to my best friend, and she's going to sublet her apartment and stay with me for a while, so I'm not alone. I felt better with her there, but I still don't feel ready. But I absolutely do not want to rent it out or sell, so it has to be now. I dumped that boyfriend really soon after I posted because he told me he couldn't believe I was still crying over my mom. F him. We've got a quick community response. Would they be happy if you gave up some of the paintings now, or would they complain about that too? I would just move on. You did a nice thing with a coffee table book, and you don't owe her anything. I'm sorry about your mom, love. It does get easier with a lot of time, not the a-hole. Honestly, you may not get an apology, and that might be something you have to live with until she experiences what you experienced, and even then, you may not hear anything from her. Grief manifests differently for everyone. It seems like Eve might not fully comprehend the depth of your pain, and the request for your mother's paintings might feel intrusive to you during this raw and emotional time. I'm sorry she didn't have the reaction you expected to her beautiful birthday gift. Your hesitation to part with your mother's paintings is entirely understandable, as they hold a profound sentimental value for you. These pieces of art are more than just objects. They represent a connection to your mother's soul and serve as a tangible remnant of her presence in your life. Remember, you're not obligated to rush your grieving process or make decisions that don't align with your emotional readiness. Your feelings are valid, and it's okay to prioritize your own healing during this difficult time. What are your thoughts? Would you have given Eve permission to take a painting? Next up, some sibling drama sparked over unconventional sleeping habits. Am I the a-hole for snapping at my sister and saying she's the one with the failing marriage, not me? My husband, 28 male, and I, 27 female, have been married for 2 years. We have an unusual sleeping arrangement. I'm a very light sleeper, and I've struggled with insomnia most of my life. It takes me a long time to fall asleep. Sometimes even the slightest noise wakes me up and I have to start all over again. My husband, on the other hand, becomes some sort of taekwondo prodigy in his sleep with how much he kicks. He's been like this since he was a kid, and any attempts to stop it have been a failure. He sleeps like a rock, so he doesn't even realize what he's doing. He also talks in his sleep occasionally. I have a job that I need to get up super early for, so my sleep is important to me. When we first moved in together, we slept in the same bed, but of course that didn't work out. I was left exhausted. He just felt super guilty, even when he wasn't consciously doing it. Eventually, we decided to have our own sleeping areas in separate rooms. We aren't angry with each other at all. We understand that some people just have different sleeping habits. This has not affected our sex life at all. We still lay together in one of the beds to watch movies or something all the time. Sometimes we even fall asleep in the same bed, which I feel fine with as long as I don't have to work in the morning. It's all a little unorthodox, but it's what works for us. My older sister Layla, 32 female, and her husband are going through a rough patch in their marriage. I think her husband's a huge a-hole. He cheated on her and made some BS excuse that he did it just because she was ignoring him and refused to fulfill his needs. She's so busy because they have 3 kids that he doesn't help her with at all. I was shocked when she told me she was staying with him even after the affair was exposed. I tried to talk her out of it, but she told me to mind my own business, so I did. They're in marriage counseling now. From what Layla has relayed to me, it's not going well. She's been trying to change in order to fix their relationship. He doesn't even try to become a better husband. He just shoots some half-assed apology and justifies his actions. I hate him, but I guess it's her choice as a grown woman to stay. She's of course devastated, but also reacting weirdly to the whole thing. She's convinced herself that it's her fault. If she had just paid more attention to him, then none of this would have happened. I've tried to tell her that isn't true, but she doesn't listen. The other day she came to our apartment to chat, and so I could see my nieces. My husband was at work. She's actually never been to my apartment before. Her and her husband have a large fancy house, so I usually just go to them. With how tense things are now, she said she'd prefer to come to my apartment. One of my nieces opened what she thought was the bathroom door. It was actually the door to my husband's separate bedroom. Layla saw inside that it was lived in, so she asked if we had gotten a roommate. I said no and just gave her a quick rundown of the situation. She seemed a bit weirded out, but didn't say anything until my nieces were all in the living room watching a movie. She began to ask all these weird questions about our sex life, love for one another, etc. I said we were doing just fine, and some of the personal questions she asked were none of her business. She got a bit snappy then and said that she's just trying to help me. If I left my husband out of my bedroom and didn't attend to his needs, he may just run off with some other woman. She told me to be careful and that it would be better to just sleep in one bed despite any sleep issues. She even said, "You have to keep an eye on him constantly so he won't feel the need to leave you for someone more attentive." I got frustrated. It wasn't even about the bedrooms anymore. She was just projecting her situation onto me. I was also upset she would suggest my husband would cheat on me for not being attentive enough. I snapped and sharply said that her husband is the cheating bastard, not mine. Just because her marriage is failing doesn't mean she gets to critique and coach mine. That made her super angry, and she immediately stood up and stormed to the living room to get her daughters and go home. She won't answer my calls. She just sent me one text that said she was just trying to help and to not be surprised when my husband cheats. My husband was offended as well, but he said he understood she's going through a very tough time now. He suggested I was just a bit too harsh and should have just let her get her paranoia rant out of her system and move on. Her mental state isn't all that good and she's probably just not thinking clearly. My mom agrees with him. She said Layla was being weird and insensitive, but I shouldn't have said something so personal. That yelling at her will only push her further away from us and towards her a-hole husband. I actually feel kind of bad now. She's obviously not thinking clearly and I should have just moved on. Am I the a-hole? You're not the a-hole here, OP. Your sister crossed the line for projecting her own issues onto your marriage and making inappropriate comments about your husband. It's understandable that you felt frustrated and defensive in response. It's crucial to set boundaries, especially when someone is trying to impose their views on your relationship. Your husband's understanding of your sister's situation and your mom's perspective show empathy, but it doesn't negate the fact that your sister's comments were intrusive and hurtful. You have the right to defend your marriage and express your discomfort with her unwarranted advice. Update. Thank you all so much for your advice on my original post. Something very intense happened with my sister last night. I was getting anxious and was planning to just go to her house and apologize and try to move on from this. But before I could go, my mom called and asked me to come over. I was shocked to arrive and see my sister sobbing with her suitcase and daughters. She was very distraught and still crying, so we had a bit of a hard time understanding her. Eventually, we figured out what happened. Apparently, earlier that day when she was home, her husband said something so repulsive she just left. Before that, she was serving him a drink and walked away to clean the kitchen and do some laundry. Her oldest daughter walked in and plopped onto the couch beside her father to watch a movie. He laughed and made some jackass joke about how she should enjoy lazing around now because when she gets a husband, all that's going to end. My niece asked why. He pointed at my sister and said, "Look at your mom, for example. Great right now, but we almost got divorced when she neglected her wifely duties. You should just be like her now all the time and skip the drama." That broke my sister. She packed up and left within the hour. He didn't chase and just said she'll be home soon. She's still frazzled and doesn't talk much, but I'm happy she's away from her jackass husband. Let's get some relevant comments now. First one. I'm sure this has been said elsewhere, but your sister was pretty clearly projecting her own issues. Most likely ones she was unwilling or unable to give voice to when this crap bag was trying to keep his servant into your situation. Your sister has also pretty clearly been the victim of long-term mental abuse by her soon-to-be ex. I know what she said was crappy, but she needs family now, especially her sister. Think of it this way if it helps. Her words came out of trauma, not malice. The OP did reply. Totally. Once she calmed down a bit, she began to apologize, but I just told her to forget it and that I understand. I said I was sorry for yelling, and things are good between us now. Here's some additional information from the comments from the OP. Sorry if I described that weird. I meant it more as he's a deadbeat as a father and husband. He's a trust fund baby and has a good job, so yeah, he's the one that pays most of the bills. My sis had a job for a bit after they got married, but after their second daughter was born, he told her to quit. All 3 of the girls are at my mom's house now. I know he does provide money, but he does nothing but hold it over her head. We haven't worked out the details, but she'll probably stay with my mom now, and we'll help her with the girls and divorce process. It's a tough situation, and it's good that you're there to support your sister during this difficult time. Trauma can manifest in various ways, and your sister's outburst was likely a result of the emotional toll she has endured in her marriage, but it doesn't make what she said to you right, OP. Your understanding and willingness to forgive show empathy and compassion. As for the living arrangements and helping with the girls, it sounds like a good plan to have her stay with your mom while you all collectively assist her during this transitional period. Keep open communication with your sister and be mindful of her needs and preferences as you navigate this challenging time together. What do you think? What do you make of OP's sister's behavior? What do you think of the sleeping arrangement? Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell before you leave. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so feel free to leave a comment. See you next time in the rLounge.